What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Crack-a-Pack episode. Today, for a very special episode, we're opening up a pack of Champions of Kamigawa. This is, I believe, the second time in the entire series. Over 250 Crack-a-Packs, we've only gotten 2 Champions of Kamigawa packs. For good reason, they are expensive, and there is a lot of interesting stuff in here. They're also the bane of Crack-a-Pack's existence, solely because every name in this set is going to be very difficult to pronounce. I'm going to do the very best I can, but I will get a lot of them wrong, telling you right now. But we will go through this as if it is a draft perspective, so we'll figure out what our pack one, pick one will be. Hopefully. I will say this, I did not draft during this time. I collected a little bit during this time, so I know some of the cards, but I really don't know, other than maybe spirits and things like that, what the best archetypes were. So we're going to do the best we can, but I'm not 100% on this set. So our first card here, Villainous Ogre. It's a 3/2 for 2 and a black. It cannot block, and as long as you control a demon, Villainous Ogre has pay 1 black and regenerate Villainous Ogre. So essentially this is a 3/2 really aggressive card that if you get a demon out, it has a little bit extra potential. It seems to me like it's a perfectly serviceable 3-drop, but not necessarily the best. It's kind of filler. A 3/2 for 3 seems okay. It can't block, so you're going to want to be aggressive. You're going to want to swing in with it. And then again, with that regenerate ability, if you can get a demon out, it seems pretty good because it's obviously going to stick around a lot more. But it just seems kind of random that you're going to get that. I don't know how often demons come up in this set. I know there are a number of them, but I don't know how often and how playable all of them are. So not super stoked on that. 100 Talon Kami, so it's a 2/3 for 4 and a white. It has flying and it also has Soul Shift 4. This was a mechanic that was really interesting. So when it's put into a graveyard from play, you may return target spirit card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So these spirits basically kept bringing each other back, which was really cool. A lot of synergy there, but it obviously made for some complicated gameplay at the very least. I do like this card though. It is only a 2/3 for 5. That is kind of expensive for that, but it does have flying, so it's going to hopefully be a little bit more aggressive in the air, being able to get through some of the ground creatures. And then also if it dies, you get Soul Shift 4, so you're able to bring something back. Most likely there are a lot of spirits in this set, I do know that, so you're probably going to have something that you can bring back. So I do kind of like it for that reason. Definitely underpowered at a 5-drop, so I'm not super stoked on it, but I do like it more than the Villainous Ogre. Uncontrollable Anger is an enchant creature for 2 and 2 red. You may play Uncontrollable Anger anytime you could play an instant, and the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and attacks each turn if able. I kind of actually like this. Normally I really don't like enchant creatures. It opens yourself up, I get that, but being able to play this at instant speed means you can play it as a combat trick, but it sticks around. And so you're probably going to get enough value off of this by hopefully killing one of their creatures. It seems like a really powerful card. I actually really like this. I think I like it more than the Kami, to be honest, because I think of this more as a removal spell. Yes, you're dependent on having a creature out, but because it's a 4-drop, it's not super late game. It's kind of in that early to mid game, where you're probably going to have at least something out. And so being able to buff it very easily and surprise block something seems really good. I think I really like that for sure. Thoughtbind is an instant for 2 and a blue. Counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. So this is a counter spell, but it's very focused. It obviously only has things at 4 mana or less. I'm not a fan of that. I think counter spells are generally okay in draft, but they're not necessarily the best. It depends how efficient they are. That's really the biggest key. And because you can only counter certain things, I feel like that's not the best. So not super interested in that. Burg Rafter is a 2/2 for 3 and a green. You can sacrifice it, and target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. This also has Soul Shift 3, so the same ability, but obviously 3 or less instead of 4. I actually like this card quite a lot. It gives you a little bit more combat tech, just because you can sacrifice it and hopefully buff something up. So it gives you a little bit more in terms of outs when blocking higher power level creatures or when you're attacking or something like that. This is always a threat that the opponent then has to consider. And on top of that, you do get Soul Shift 3 even if it is sacrificed. So you get a little bit of value even if you have to get rid of it. I really like that. I don't think I like it more than the Anger, but it is still pretty powerful for sure. Definitely like that. Cursed Ronin is a 1/1 for 3 and a black. It has Bushido 1. So when this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. You can also pay 1 and it gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn as well, specifically 1 black. This is like, I don't like this. I don't like that it's very, very expensive for a 1/1. I like that you can buff it, but you're then sinking a lot of mana into this, and I don't like that. They could easily remove it. They can give you the option of buffing it and then all of a sudden remove it, so then they tap you down for a turn. It just leaves you really, really open to a lot of things that I am not a fan of, so this card definitely not interested in. Lifted by Clouds is an instant arcane spell, which is important in this this set. It's 2 and a blue. Target creature gains flying until the end of the turn, and then this has splice onto arcane. So 1 and a blue. As you play this spell, an arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. If you do, you add this card's effects to that spell. What that means is the effect gets added to the original arcane spell, but this stays in your hand. So for that cost, you tack on this ability onto the other spell, and then this one stays in your hand. So essentially, you were able to get extra uses out of certain spells, which was really, really powerful, in fact. But I don't like this card in particular. Giving something flying at instant speed can certainly be good, but it's very, very rare that that ever is like a game ending or a really pivotal moment in a game. And so for that reason, not super excited about that. Matsu Tribe Decoy is a 1/3 for 2 and a green. You can pay 2 and a green, and target creature blocks the decoy this turn if able. And whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, tap that creature, and it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. I actually really like this card. You can force blocks with it, which is hugely powerful. Yes, it's a little underpowered. It's probably not going to kill very much, but it is kind of a tempo play. In green, that's a little interesting. You do have to pay extra mana into it, which kind of sucks because then you're basically tapping yourself down for a turn. Because of that, I'm not as big of a fan of this as the Anger for sure, but it is actually a pretty good card. I wouldn't mind running this and just seeing out how it goes, basically. Soulless Revival is a instant, again, arcane spell for 1 and a black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, for 1 and a black, you can splice it onto an arcane spell. This is actually perfectly fine. Returning a creature card from your graveyard to your hand is a really powerful ability because it basically says, okay, you had to kill this once. I'm going to bring it back and you're going to have to deal with it again. Being able to do this multiple times by splicing it is also pretty powerful. So I do like that for a lot of reasons. There's also a lot of extra value in this set. If you can soul shift, bring something back with this card that has a high soul shift level or something along those lines, you start bringing a lot of stuff back. It's actually pretty cool. And then again, splicing it onto stuff multiple times means you can theoretically use this any number of times as long as you have that many spells. And it's pretty cheap, so I like it for all of those reasons. I don't necessarily think it's better than the Anger. This is very much a card that is good, but not amazing. It's just something that's nice to have. It's a little bit of extra tech against a lot of stuff. And so I like it for that reason, but I like the Anger better. Definitely think of the Anger much more as a removal spell, and I very much highly value removal spells in Limited, so I would take that over it for sure. Speaking of removal spells, Glacial Ray, an instant arcane spell for 1 and a red, deals 2 damage to any creature or player, and you can splice it for 1 and a red as well. In my opinion, this is a better card than the Anger. Excuse me. Solely because you can use it multiple times. I think that's hugely important. 2 damage to target creature or player is great, especially when you can stack it. So you can technically play a card, splice this onto that card if it is an arcane spell, and then also just play this again. So you can actually do this multiple times in a singular turn and deal quite a lot of damage to something, which is fantastic. You can even use this to end a game. And so I really, really like this card for sure. It's a very, very powerful card. Seems like a more expensive shock for a lot of people, but being able to splice it is huge in this set. So definitely like that. Saratami Mirror Guard is a 3/1 for 3 and a blue. It does have flying, and then you can pay to return a land you control to its owner's hand, and target creature with power 2 or less is unblockable this turn. This is just a perfectly fine card, actually. I'm not super stoked about it because it dies very easily, but it is still a 3/1 with flying for 4. And honestly, that's not terrible value right off the bat. The extra kind of unblockable clause is situational, I think, at best, just because you do have to bounce the land, which is pretty bad. But it gives some, longevity. It gives you a little bit of inevitability when it comes to just making sure you're dealing damage every turn, and I like that. You're dependent on other cards. This cannot give it to itself. But it's still probably fairly useful in a game, but I'd rather have the Glacial Ray. Removal is very, very important in my opinion. The Glacial Ray also takes care of this card, which is really interesting, and so I definitely lean towards that. Swallowing Plague is X and 2 black for a sorcery arcane spell. It deals X damage to target creature and you gain X life. That's pretty powerful. I really, really like that. It is only to a creature, but it's not limited by anything but the number of lands that you have. And so it theoretically scales up and can deal with a lot of different stuff, where Glacial Ray only deals with minimal stuff, unless you can splice it, which is a little bit situational. Still very powerful, but this kind of does it on its own. So in that instance, I think I would stick with the Swallowing Plague over the Glacial Ray, though both are very, very good. Squelch is an instant for 1 and a blue, counter target activated ability. Mana abilities cannot be targeted, and then draw a card. So this is a really interesting card. There's actually times in Constructed where I've seen this card played, which is really interesting, but it is very situational. I don't necessarily like this in Draft very much. There are times where it's going to be really, really worth it to be able to do this, but it doesn't hit triggered abilities, only activated abilities, and so for that reason, very corner case-ish, so not super excited by it. Mana Schism, I don't know. Sorcery for 1 and a red. Sacrifice any number of lands. Add 1 mana, generic mana, to your mana pool for each land sacrificed this way. Really don't like this card. Not in limited at all. It's just not worth it. It's a one-shot deal. You kind of blow up your own board just to play 1 card. Seems really bad, so just going to gloss over that completely. And then our rare, wow, this is actually a good rare. So Heartbeat of Spring is an enchantment for 2 and a green. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of that type to his or her mana pool. This is a very interesting card in Cube. Unfortunately, I don't like it here. Giving that ability to both you and your opponent generally means that it really just kind of keeps the playing field even, and you just open up more options for both of you. And so I don't really like it here, but in Cube, it's fantastic. You can storm off with a card like this just because it gives you so much extra mana. Really, really like that. But I think for me, it's a pretty easy Swallowing Plague. Honestly, we didn't have anything that was too difficult to pronounce either. I was kind of happy about that, aside for that one. But regardless, really enjoyed opening up this pack. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like or a comment down below. And as always, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our awesome content. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next Crack-A-Pack video.